The night on Theros was silent and cold. Snowflakes floated through the dark sky like tiny feathers. A strong wind howled across the icy plains, brushing against the walls of a small human outpost. Inside the outpost, a man named Toma sat near, a heater, sipping warm tea. He was a quiet man, used to being alone. Toma worked as a technician for the weather systems on Theros, a moon far from Earth. He had been living here for 2 years without any visitors. He liked the silence. He liked the cold. But sometimes he missed voices other than his own. Suddenly, his alert screen blinked red. Something had landed nearby, too close to ignore. Toma stood up quickly and checked the scanner. A small ship had crashed not far from the station. He narrowed his eyes. No signal, no ID, just smoke and metal. Without wasting time, he grabbed his coat, boots, and emergency kit. The cold outside was dangerous. Anyone in that ship would freeze within minutes. Toma stepped into the storm, walking carefully toward the crash site. The wind hit his face like knives. His boots sank into the deep snow, but he kept walking, guided by the blinking light on his scanner. After 15 minutes, he reached the wreck. A small silver pod had crashed into a snowbank. It was burning slightly, and one side was torn open. Inside, he saw movement. Someone was alive. Toma climbed in and found a figure lying against the wall, weak and barely conscious. It was a woman, not human. Her skin was smooth and pale blue. Her hair, long and silver, clung to her face. She wore a thin suit that was torn at the arm. One eye opened slowly, just enough to look at him. Toma spoke calmly. "Can you move?" She didn't answer, but her head gave a small nod. He wrapped her in a heat blanket and lifted her gently. She was lighter than he expected. Her skin felt cold, almost icy. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but she needed help. And right now, she needed warmth. Back at the station, Toma placed her near the heater. She didn't speak, but her eyes followed him. He brought water and placed it in her hands. Her fingers were shaking, but she drank slowly. "My name is Toma," he said, sitting across from her. "You crashed close to my station. You're safe now." She didn't speak for a while. Then, in a soft voice, she said, "Mira." Toma smiled lightly. "Mira. That's a nice name." She blinked slowly, still watching him. He gave her food, simple soup and bread. She ate carefully, like someone who hadn't tasted food in days. Toma didn't ask too many questions. He could see she was tired, scared, and in pain. Later that night, she stood weakly and looked around the small station. There was only one real bed. The rest of the space had machines, tools, and cold metal floors. Toma understood what she was thinking. "You can take the bed," he said. "It's warm." She looked at him, confused. He pointed to the soft blanket and said again, "It's okay. I'll sleep in the chair." She walked to the bed slowly, sat down, and touched the blanket as if it was something special. After a few seconds, she looked at Toma again. "You trust me?" Toma gave a tired smile. "You're cold, hurt, and alone. What harm could you do?" She said nothing after that, just laid down and closed her eyes. In the quiet of the night, Toma sat in his chair, watching the snow fall outside the small window. He wasn't sure what kind of trouble she had escaped from, but something inside him told him she wasn't dangerous. She was just lost, like him. At one point, Mira whispered something in a language he didn't understand. Her face was calm. She was dreaming. Toma pulled his coat over himself and leaned back. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, he wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in 2 years, someone else was breathing under the same roof. Someone from another world. And somehow it didn't feel strange. It felt right. As the storm outside grew stronger, the small outpost remained warm and quiet. 2 souls, one human, one alien, shared the silence, unaware that their meeting would change everything. When morning came, soft sunlight touched the window of the outpost. The storm had calmed, but the world outside was still covered in white snow. Toma opened his eyes slowly. His back ached from sleeping in the chair, but his first thought was not about himself. He turned toward the bed. Mira was still asleep. Her breathing was steady, and her face looked more peaceful than it had last night. Toma stood up quietly and went to make breakfast. The station had only basic food, dried eggs, flatbread, and tea, but it was warm, and that was enough in a place like Theros. He placed a bowl of soup on the table, just as Mira sat up. She looked around, blinking slowly. For a moment, she seemed unsure of where she was. Then her eyes found Toma. "You slept in the chair," she said softly. Toma smiled. "You needed the bed more than I did." She slowly stood, walked to the table, and sat across from him. She looked at the bowl, then at him. "You are kind." Toma shrugged. "I just do what feels right." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Mira ate slowly again, like someone used to being careful. Toma noticed how she always looked around first, as if checking for danger. After breakfast, Toma tried to ask her questions, gently. "Your ship?" he said. "Was it attacked?" Mira's face changed. She nodded slowly. "Yes, it was shot down." "Do you know who did it?" "I do not know their names, but they were not soldiers. They were hunters." Toma frowned. "Hunters? Why would anyone hunt you?" Mira looked down at her hands. "Because I know something they want to hide." Toma didn't press further. She was clearly not ready to tell everything. He changed the subject. "I need to check the weather system," he said, pointing to the console. "You can rest more if you like." Mira stood. "No, I will help." Toma was surprised. "You don't have to." "I want to," she said, firmly. So the two of them worked side by side. Toma showed her the panels, the wires, and how the outpost kept the heat and power running. Mira listened carefully, learning quickly. She was quiet, but her mind was sharp. She asked questions about human machines, about how things worked, about the purpose of each tool. "You learn fast," Toma said. Mira looked at him. "On my world, I studied languages, but I was always curious about machines." That made Toma smile. "Then you came to the right place." As the day passed, the mood between them changed. Mira no longer looked afraid. She moved with more comfort. Toma noticed how her eyes would sometimes follow him, as if watching to understand him better. She laughed once, softly, when he dropped a tool and blamed the table for being too small. It was the first time he heard her laugh. Later, as they sat near the heater again, Toma asked her a quiet question. "Why were you out here alone?" Mira looked into the fire. "I was part of a group. We came to speak peace between systems, but someone wanted to stop us. I escaped. Toma nodded slowly. You came a long way for peace. She turned her eyes to him. You are alone too. Why? Toma looked out the window. The stars were beginning to show in the sky. I used to live on Earth, but it felt too crowded, too loud. I came here for silence, to think, to fix things. Mira tilted her head. And are you fixed? Toma smiled sadly. Not yet. They sat quietly for a while. Mira reached out and picked up a small music player from the shelf. What is this? She asked. Toma pressed a button. Soft music began to play. A gentle human song filled the room, slow and peaceful. Mira listened with closed eyes. It sounds warm. Toma watched her closely. It's an old Earth song about waiting for someone. She opened her eyes. Do you believe in waiting? I believe in timing, he said. Sometimes people meet when they're ready. Mira gave a small nod, as if she understood that feeling deeply. That night, Toma again offered her the bed. She hesitated this time. You can sleep there too, she said quietly. It is warm enough for two. Toma blinked, surprised, but then he saw her face. There was no fear, no hidden meaning. She simply meant what she said. He nodded. All right, if you're sure. So they lay side by side, two strangers from different worlds, now sharing a quiet space. They didn't speak, but the silence was not empty. It was calm, safe. Before sleep took them, Mira whispered, Thank you for trusting me. Toma replied, Thank you for staying. Outside, the snow began to fall again. But inside, something warmer than heat had started to grow. Trust, connection, maybe even the beginning of something more. Neither of them knew what the next day would bring. But for tonight, they were no longer alone, and that made all the difference. The wind outside howled again. Thick snow covered the ground like a blanket, hiding the sharp rocks and ice. The outpost stood like a small dot in a white world, its lights glowing warmly against the cold. Inside, everything was quiet. Toma woke. First. He turned his head slowly and saw Mira still asleep beside him. Her face was peaceful, her silver hair soft against the pillow. She breathed calmly, and her hands were gently folded over the blanket. Toma stayed still, not wanting to wake her. He looked up at the ceiling and thought about how much had changed in just 2 days. For so long, his life had been the same. Wake up, check the systems, eat alone, sleep alone. Now there was someone else. And the silence that once felt comforting now felt warmer because she was part of it. After a while, he got up and made breakfast. Again, tea, eggs, and flatbread. The smell slowly filled the room. Mira sat up, rubbing her eyes. She looked at Toma, and he noticed a small smile on her lips. It smells good, she said softly. He nodded. It's the same as yesterday. I like it. They ate together without rush. Mira was beginning to speak more, and her voice was becoming steadier. She asked questions about Earth, what it looked like, what people did there, what music humans liked. Toma told her about green forests, oceans, cities full of lights, and children running through parks. Mira listened with wide eyes, like a child. Hearing bedtime stories. Your world is full of color, she said. My world is mostly white and gray. Sounds like Theros, Toma replied. Mira laughed lightly. Yes, but my home never had someone like you. Toma looked at her, a bit surprised, but didn't say anything. He just smiled quietly and poured her more tea. As the day went on, they worked together again. Toma showed her how to clean the solar panels and adjust the heat lines. Mira was a fast learner, and she seemed to enjoy helping. Every time she did something right, Toma gave a small nod of approval. She noticed that and smiled more often. At one point, Toma tripped on a wire and nearly fell. Mira rushed to him and grabbed his arm. "Are you okay?" she asked, concerned. "I'm fine," he said, brushing snow off his coat. "The wire's just jealous I'm spending time with you." Mira tilted her head. "Jealous? Wires can feel that?" Toma laughed. "No, it's just a joke." She nodded slowly, thinking, "I want to learn jokes." He looked at her with interest. "Really?" "Yes. I think they are important. You smile when you make one. I want to smile like that." Toma paused for a moment, then said, "Okay. I'll teach you a joke every day." Mira gave a small bow. "Then I will learn one every day." Later that evening, the storm outside grew stronger. The outpost walls creaked softly under the wind. Toma checked the systems again and locked the door tight. "No one's coming in this weather," he said. Mira looked toward the window. "Good. I don't want to leave yet." Toma looked at her. "You don't have to." She turned to him. "They might come. The ones who chased me. But right now, I feel safe." There was a pause. Then she said something quietly. "On my world, sleeping beside another is a sign of trust. It means you see them as more than a stranger." Toma nodded slowly. "That's true for humans, too." She looked into his eyes. "Then we are no longer strangers." He didn't answer with words. He just smiled. That night they sat near the heater again. Mira had taken one of Toma's old books and was trying to read it. It was a simple Earth story about two travelers lost in a storm, helping each other find the way. Mira closed the book halfway and looked up. "Do all your stories end with someone finding home?" "Most of them," Toma said. "Humans like stories with hope." "I like that," she said softly. "Hope is rare where I come from." She leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "Do you think two different people from two different stars can belong in the same place?" Toma thought for a moment. Then he said, "I think belonging doesn't come from stars. It comes from the heart." Mira looked at him. Her eyes were calm but deep, like a quiet ocean. "You speak simply," she said, "but your words go far." "I guess I've had a lot of time to think," Toma replied. That night they lay in the bed again. No fear, no awkwardness, just calm understanding. Mira asked for her daily joke. Toma thought for a moment, then said, "Why did the snowman bring a broom?" "I don't know." "Why?" "Because he wanted to sweep the competition." Mira stared at him. Then her lips curved into a smile and she let out a soft laugh. "I understand," she said. "That was clever." Toma chuckled. "Not my best one, but we've got more nights." She turned on her side, facing him. "Toma." "Yes?" "Thank you for being patient with me." He looked at her gently. "You've been brave. I'm glad you're here." Outside, the wind howled across the frozen moon. But inside the small station, warmth grew, not just from the heater, but from something deeper. Mira closed her eyes, feeling safe again, and Toma watched her for a moment before doing the same. Tomorrow might bring danger, But tonight, they had peace. And sometimes, peace is the most powerful beginning. The days passed quietly, wrapped in snow and silence. Mira was healing, and her face now carried more color and light. She moved freely through the outpost, helping Toma with tasks, laughing softly at his daily jokes, and reading more of his old Earth books. Toma found himself waiting for her smile each morning, as if it had become part of his routine. In truth, it had become something more, something he didn't speak aloud but felt deeply. Then, on the 6th day, something changed. Toma sat at the control panel, checking the power levels and outside temperatures. Mira was standing nearby, reading through the station's emergency guidebook. She liked learning how humans handled problems, how they prepared, how they survived. Suddenly, the warning light on the panel began to blink. A soft beep followed it. Toma leaned closer. Unknown. Signal detected. He quickly scanned the frequencies. Someone was scanning the area. A large ship, much larger than a normal transport, was moving above Theros, slowly and silently. It wasn't broadcasting any name. It was looking for something, or someone. Toma's heart began to beat faster. Mira noticed his face and walked over. "What's wrong?" He turned the screen toward her. "There's a ship in orbit. It's not from Earth. No ID. It's scanning the surface." Her eyes darkened. "They found me." Toma stood up. "Are you sure?" "I can feel it," she whispered. "It's them, the ones who shot me down." Toma grabbed his jacket. "We have to hide you." "No," she said. "If you hide me, you'll be in danger too." "I already am," Toma replied. "You're my guest, and I won't let anyone hurt you." Mira looked at him with something deeper than fear. It was worry for him. "You don't know what they're capable of." "Maybe not," he said calmly. "But I know what I'm capable of. I fix things. I find ways out." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. They turned off all major power in the station to stay hidden. Toma used his tools to jam the signal coming from the station's beacon. Outside, the snow helped hide the building, and the strong winds made it harder for scanners to read anything below. They moved into the back room, where Toma kept older gear and spare parts. Mira looked through the shelves, searching. "I still have the data," she said. "What data?" She held up a small crystal chip, no larger than a coin. "This holds the truth. The reason I was hunted." Toma frowned. "What's on it?" "Records, messages, a plan by certain leaders in the council to remove peaceful voices and replace them with silent ones. I was only a translator, but I heard too much. I saw too much." "And they want to erase you for it?" She nodded. "If this truth is shared, it will cause great change, but also great fear." Toma looked at the crystal. "Then it needs to be shared." Mira blinked. "What?" "You didn't come all this way to stay quiet," he said. "You didn't survive a crash and a storm just to hide. But if I send it now, they'll know where I am." Toma stepped forward. "Then we don't send it from here. I have an idea." Toma led her through a back tunnel beneath the station. Long ago, the tunnel had been used to carry equipment from the landing pad. Now it was full of dust and frost, but it still worked. They walked in silence, carrying only a light and the crystal chip. Mira looked at him as they moved through the tunnel. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked. Toma stopped. The cold air clouded his breath. "Because I trust you, and because the world needs people who tell the truth." Mira touched the wall beside her. On my planet, people are trained to hide truth, to speak only what is safe. When I met you, I thought humans would be the same. And now? She looked at him. Now I see why your kind is feared, not for your weapons, but for your heart. Toma didn't know what to say, so he just kept walking. They reached an old weather satellite uplink buried in snow. It was slow and small, but still able to send messages through hidden channels. Toma brushed off the snow and started the system. Mira placed the chip into the port. Lights blinked. The data began to upload. Where is it going? She asked. To a neutral station orbiting Earth. It has public channels. Once it's there, others will see it. Mira stood quietly, watching the lights flash. Then, the screen turned green. Upload complete. It's done, Toma said. Mira didn't move. She stared at the screen. I never thought I'd see it happen. I always imagined I'd be silenced before I could. You weren't, Toma said. Because you survived. And because we did it together. She turned toward him. Her eyes shimmered. Not with fear now, but with something else. I'm still afraid, she admitted. He reached out and touched her hand. So am I. But you don't have to be afraid alone. They returned to the station before the sky darkened again. The ship in orbit hadn't landed. Maybe it had given up, or maybe it was still watching. Either way, the truth had already left Theros. That night, they sat near the heater again, but everything felt different. Mira seemed lighter, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She looked at Toma. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You didn't. Just save me. You believed in me? Toma smiled. That's what friends do. She hesitated, then said softly, Are we just friends? Toma looked into her eyes. Do you want to be more? She didn't answer with words. She only reached for his hand. Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside something warm continued to grow, stronger now, unshaken by the storm above. The next morning, the silence on Theros was not peaceful. It was tense. Toma stood at the window, watching the sky. The large ship had not left. It was still orbiting, still searching. But now, the scan patterns had changed. They were getting closer, more focused. Mira came up beside him. She didn't speak, but her expression said everything. They both knew what it meant. They're coming down, Toma said quietly. Mira nodded. They found something. Maybe the signal path, maybe heat signatures. They're not guessing anymore. Toma stepped away from the window. Then we can't stay here. Mira's face was calm, but her voice was serious. I can leave. I can go alone. They won't follow you if I'm not here. No, Toma said, shaking his head. You're not going alone. But if you stay with me, they'll see you. As an enemy. Toma looked her in the eyes. Then let them. I'd rather be hunted with you than live safe without you. Mira's eyes filled with emotion, but she didn't cry. Instead, she placed her hand gently on his chest. Then we run. Together. Toma knew a way. There was an old mining zone deep beneath the surface of Theros. Years ago, when the moon was first explored, humans had dug tunnels into the ice, searching for minerals. The tunnels had been shut down after being marked unstable, but Toma had maps, and he had used part of the tunnels for storage. We'll follow the tunnel west, he said, packing supplies. If we move fast, we can reach the transport shed near the ridge. There's an old skimmer there. Does it still work? Mira asked. We'll find out, Toma said with a grin. They wore thick coats, carried 2 small packs, and took only what they needed: food, tools, the chip, and a single heating core. Mira also kept a small light crystal from her own ship. It helps me see what humans miss, she said. Together, they opened the back panel of the outpost and stepped into the icy tunnel. The metal walls were rusted and cold. The lights flickered, but the path was still clear. As they walked, Mira whispered, "You are not afraid?" Toma glanced at her. "I'm used to walking into the unknown. The only difference now is I'm not walking alone." She smiled at that, holding her light crystal in one hand and keeping close. Hours passed. The tunnel stretched far, turning and twisting under the surface. Once or twice, the ground shook slightly. Mira reached out and steadied herself against Toma. "Still think this is safe?" she asked. He gave her a look. "It's safer than waiting for a landing team to knock on our front door." "Fair point," she said. Soon the tunnel opened into a wide chamber where old mining machines stood like sleeping giants. Some had ice growing over their wheels. Others had broken screens and shattered arms. In the middle of the room stood the old skimmer, a small hovercraft designed for surface travel. Toma ran to it, brushed off the snow, and opened the side panel. "Come on, come on." Mira stood back, holding the light, watching him work. "How long since this was last used?" "Maybe 6 years," Toma said, connecting wires and tapping buttons. The skimmer's engine groaned. Then again. Then hum. It came to life, low and shaky, but alive. Mira let out a breath. "You really do fix things," Toma grinned. "Told you." They climbed in. The cabin was tight, but just large enough for 2. Mira sat beside him, her crystal tucked inside her coat. Toma pressed the pedal, and the skimmer slowly rose off the icy floor. He turned it toward the exit tunnel. "Hold on," he said. As the skimmer shot out of the tunnel, snow and wind hit them hard. The sky was gray. The wind screamed around them. But ahead, they could see the ridge, a sharp line of rocks and ice where the land dropped into the valley. That's where the backup station was. If they could reach it, they could send one final message, maybe even call for help. But they weren't alone. Above them, a shadow passed through the clouds. "A ship! They're tracking us!" Mira shouted. Toma looked at the scanner. "They're fast, but we can lose them in the canyons." The skimmer darted forward. Behind them, the ship began to descend. It wasn't firing yet, but it was close. Mira turned in her seat. "They want to capture, not destroy. That gives us time." "Let's use it well," Toma said. They entered the canyons, tall walls of ice rising high on both sides. The skimmer bounced and swerved, but Toma held steady. He knew the land, every turn, every corner. "They can't scan through this much ice," he said. "If we lose them here, we'll have a head start." The skimmer dove through a narrow gap, sped under a frozen arch, and twisted around sharp rocks. Mira held on tight. "You drive like a madman! And you're still sitting beside me?" They both laughed. Even in danger, they found light. Finally, after a long curve, they saw it. A dark shape on the edge of the cliff. The backup station. Toma brought the skimmer to a stop just outside the entrance. They rushed inside where old systems blinked faintly in the dim light. Toma powered up the transmitter. Mira placed her crystal on the console. One more signal. He nodded. Just one. Together, they sent out a short message. Data uploaded. Evidence confirmed. Request safe extraction. They attached coordinates and sent it to Human Alliance stations. Toma leaned back. Now, we wait. Mira sat beside him, silent for a long time. Then she said, I would not have made it this far without you. You would have, Toma replied. You're stronger than you think. She looked at him, soft and steady. And you're kinder than most I've ever known. Outside, the wind began to slow. They didn't know if help would come. They didn't know if they would be chased again. But they had each other, and that made every mile of running worth it. Hand in hand, they sat in the quiet, no longer running from danger, but running toward something better, together. The small backup station on the cliff was cold, but it offered shelter. Toma and Mira sat near the only working heater, watching the transmitter screen. Outside, the storm had passed. The sky was gray-blue, and the wind had calmed. But their hearts were not calm. They waited, hoping someone had received their message. Mira checked the power level. We have less than a day of heat left. Toma nodded. If no one answers by then, we'll have to move again. She turned toward him. I don't want to keep running. Toma looked into her eyes. Then we don't run. We fight smart. We make a real plan. There was a soft beep from the screen. Mira rushed over. A signal had arrived. Toma joined her. The message was short and encrypted, but Mira understood it quickly. It's from a human science ship in nearby space. They read the data. They believe it. Toma let out a breath of relief. Then it's done. You did it. But Mira's face stayed serious. The data is now in safe hands. But it will shake many systems. The Council will be angry. They may blame humans for helping. Toma frowned. Let them. We did what was right. Mira stared at the screen. They might not attack with weapons. They'll use lies. They'll try to turn others against Earth. Then we fight truth with truth. She looked at him, surprised. You really believe humans can stop this? He stepped closer. Not just humans. Us. You and me. Mira sat down, holding the empty chip in her hand. I never wanted to be part of a war, she said. I only wanted to share peace. Words. Understanding. Toma sat beside her. And you still can. This isn't the end, Mira. This is just the beginning. She looked at him with soft eyes. I'm not sure where I belong now. Toma smiled gently. You belong where you're believed. And you're believed here. She took a deep breath. Then I want to stay. But I don't want others to get hurt because of me. Toma leaned back. I have another idea. Later that day, they began working again. Toma connected the transmitter to a stronger antenna from the skimmer. Mira used her crystal to secure the frequency. If we send the truth in small pieces through different paths, Toma explained, the Council won't be able to block it. Slow truth is still truth, Mira agreed. They made a short message, a calm voice recording in both human and Mira's language. It didn't attack anyone. It didn't name names. It only asked for understanding and peace. Mira's voice was strong and kind in the recording. She spoke not like a victim, but like a bridge between worlds. I am not a spy, she said in the message. I am a translator. I am a traveler. I believe in connection, not control. They sent the message to 10 channels using quiet relays that bounced off small satellites. Once it was done, Toma looked at her. You just became the voice of reason in a storm." She smiled. "Then I learned from the right person." That night they shared their last pack of food and sat near the heater, wrapped in the same blanket. Toma stared at the flames. "I was never supposed to be part of something like this." "Me. Neither," Mira said. "But sometimes we don't choose the moment. The moment chooses us." He looked at her. "If you had the chance to leave now, to go to your people, to be safe, would you take it?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Only if you could come with me." Toma looked surprised. "You'd want me there?" "You let me stay in your bed," she said softly. "You gave me warmth, food, trust, and more. That kind of heart doesn't exist everywhere." He reached out and took her hand. "I never thought I'd feel this again." "What is this?" she asked. "Hope, and maybe something more." In the early morning, a light appeared in the sky. It was small at first, but then it grew brighter. A human science vessel came, down slowly, shining through the thin clouds. Toma and Mira stepped outside, watching it land on the ice. A door opened, and two figures in human suits walked out. Toma raised his hand. "We're not armed?" One of the figures nodded. "We're here in peace. You must be Toma and Mira." Mira stepped forward. "You heard our message?" "Yes," the officer said. "We also received the full data. We believe you, and we're here to offer protection." Toma looked at Mira. "They came." She gave a small smile. "You were right. Truth finds a way." The officers led them to the ship. It was warm and quiet inside. Mira looked around, seeing strange controls and blinking lights, but no fear. As they sat down, one officer turned to her. "You have a choice, Mira. You can stay with us, or we can help you reach one of the protected human planets." "You'll be safe?" Mira looked at Toma. "And him?" "He's free to go anywhere with you," the officer said. Mira turned to Toma. "Well," Toma smiled, "you already know my answer. They chose to leave Theros together. The station, the snow, the long silence. It had given them something. More than survival. It had given them each other." As the ship rose into the sky, Mira took one last look at the cold moon. "I came here alone," she whispered, "but I'm leaving with a future." Toma placed his hand over hers. "And it's only just beginning." The city of Marana Prime, on a green Earth-like planet, was peaceful and filled with life. Birds flew above the tall glass towers. Children played near the lakes. The people here were from different worlds, humans and aliens living side by side. It was a place of peace and hope, and this was now home to Toma and Mira. 6 months had passed since they left the cold moon of Theros. The truth Mira had carried, the message she and Toma had risked everything to send, had reached far and wide. Some leaders denied it, others accepted it. But most importantly, millions had listened. Now, Mira worked at the Earth Diplomacy Council. Her voice became a symbol of peace between species. Toma worked quietly beside her, designing secure communication systems for diplomats. They had not chosen fame. They had chosen each other. That morning, Mira stood on a balcony overlooking the gardens. She wore simple clothes and held a cup of tea. Her skin caught the soft light of the sunrise. A gentle wind touched her long hair. Toma walked out, yawning and stretching. He stood beside her and smiled. "You always wake up before me," he said. "I like the quiet, she replied. And the view. He looked at her, not the view. Me too. She laughed softly and leaned her head on his shoulder. Later that day, they visited a small human school. A teacher had invited Mira to speak. The students were young, curious, and full of questions. One boy raised his hand. "Miss Mira, is it true you were hiding on a moon?" "Yes," she smiled, "but I wasn't hiding alone." Toma stood at the back, watching quietly. Another student asked, "Were you scared?" Mira nodded. "I was, but Toma made me feel safe." A girl asked, "Do you like Earth?" Mira smiled again. "I love Earth. It gave me a second chance. And someone who believed in me." The teacher clapped gently. "Children, let's say thank you." "Thank you, Miss Mira," they said together. Toma smiled as Mira gave them a small wave. That night they returned to their quiet home. The city lights shone far below, but the stars above shone brighter. Toma sat at his work desk, checking a new transmission system. Mira entered the room with a small box. "I have something for you." He looked up. "What is it?" She opened the box. Inside was a small, hand-carved stone. On it was a symbol, a half circle with a star in the center. Toma raised an eyebrow. "What does it mean?" Mira sat beside him. "It's a mark from my homeworld. It means journey shared." Toma picked up the stone. "It's beautiful. It's for you," she said, "because this journey is ours." He held her hand. "And I'll walk it with you, wherever it leads." Weeks passed. One day, a message arrived from a council officer. A peace conference was being held on Vera Station, a large orbital base between human and alien space. They asked Mira to speak again, not just as a diplomat, but as a symbol of hope. Toma looked at the message. "Are you ready for something so big?" Mira nodded slowly. "Yes, but only if you come with me." "You'll be speaking to hundreds," he said. "I'm used to that now," she smiled. "But I still want your hand in mine when I speak." Vera. Station was bright, clean, and full of different faces. Aliens with wings, eyes like glass, or voices like wind, all came to listen. Toma had never seen so many beings from so many places in one room. Mira stood on a stage. Cameras recorded her every word. But she didn't look nervous. She looked calm. "I was not born on Earth," she began. "But Earth gave me a home. It gave me shelter when I had none. And it gave me something more. A human who believed in peace when I had lost it." People listened closely. "We are not here to speak of war. We are here to speak of truth. Truth that is not loud, not proud, but steady and patient, like the hands that built the room we stand in." She looked at Toma in the crowd. "I stayed in his shelter, shared his food, and trusted his heart. That heart saved me, and together we saved something bigger, trust between worlds." There was silence for a moment, then applause. After the speech, leaders from different species approached Mira and Toma. They asked questions. They offered support. The message was clear. The story they had lived mattered. Later that night, back at their temporary room on the station, Toma sat on the edge of the bed. "You were amazing," he said. Mira sat beside him. "I was just honest." "That's what made it amazing." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You still think this is just a strange story that happened to us?" No, he said quietly. This isn't just a story anymore. It's our life. Mira smiled. Then let's keep riding it. 1 year later, a statue was placed in the public park of Marana Prime. It showed a human man offering a blanket to an alien woman. No faces, just forms. The base had simple words carved into it. You let me stay in your bed, human. And now, our love story has changed the stars. Children played around it. Adults paused to look at it. Tourists took photos. But for Mira and Toma, it was more than a statue. It was a memory and a promise.